Darkcore by Steve Goodman from CCRU's Abstract Culture Swarm Number 3. This text from CCRU.net. Co-motion is turbulence. 1. 1965. KO teams drift up the Mekong, setting up 2 neuropsychiatric treatment outpatient facilities. Each team consists of 3 psychiatrists, 1 neurologist, 1 clinical psychologist, 2 social workers, and 12 enlisted mental hygiene personnel. Each team is equipped with full evacuation authority. Some kind of psychogeographical torsion was warping esprit de corps. 1. 1965. KO teams drift up the Mekong, setting up 2 neuropsychiatric treatment outpatient facilities. Each team consists of 3 psychiatrists, 1 neurologist, 1 clinical psychologist, 2 social workers, and 12 enlisted mental hygiene personnel. Each team is equipped with full evacuation authority. Some kind of psychogeographical torsion was warping esprit de corps. 2. The troubled soldiers reported cryptic symptoms. Meanwhile, space and space of me, seemingly that itches me, continually we writhe and blister. Ocelli, infinite population of ocelli. I give myself up to the ocelli, to the infinitesimal tearings, to the spiraling. I fold to the 1,000 folds that fold and unfold me. Traitors, they giddy me, unravel me. And perhaps most bizarrely, in a high space beneath my open forehead, suddenly I see, rising in tears to the infinite, at angles, enormous, gigantic, flamboyant, Gothic monuments, streaming, exasperated, possessed, acceleratingly, with Gothic leaps and bounds, with Gothic chromatics, with Gothic ballistics. Jet Gothic. 3. After this particular examination, health warnings were immediately issued to all Huey pilots. 1. Meanwhile, upriver, at the base of the spine, KO labs bring the noise. Noise is both battle and racket. Noise is a weapon that, at times, dispenses with weapons. To take up space, to take the place, that is the whole point. And noise occupies space faster than weapons can. 2. When I read the definition, something like the twisting rotary force, especially within a machine, I was like, that's what we do. 3. Torque is any force or system of forces that causes or tends to cause rotation. A twisting effort applied to an object, body, or limb that tends to make the object turn about its axis of rotation. The magnitude of a torque is equal to the magnitude of the applied force multiplied by the distance between the object's axis of rotation and the point where the force is applied. In many ways, torque is a rotational analog to force. Just as a force applied to an object tends to change the linear rate of motion of the object, a torque applied to an object tends to change the object's rate of rotational motion. 1. The angular momentum of breakbeat culture provides a sonic simulation of hyper-urban meltdown. Not an analogy, but a cartographic isomorphism opening sonic production onto a war continuum, which deposits localized chaosmosis on every scale. Jungle's basic problem: how to sustain rhythmic asymmetry, nurture the swerve, sustain the turbulence. What degree of stratification is required to get distributed, protracting activity against hyper-control through it becoming imperceptible. Program catastrophe means that the nomadic speed of the extensive riot is already overexposed in a cyber-fascist video capture, digitalization as stratification. From the amped-down 2-step stand-up of monoplotted neurofunk, e.g. shadowboxing, to the turbines of no U-turn, Delinja, Lemon D, Technical Itch, etc., to the elongated snake style of Source Direct, Razor's Edge 5. The phase space of breakbeat warps, breaks down, solidifies, and dissolves, as if waiting for a geological singularity to send a new seismic wave through the submarine rhythm space of pop culture. Digital Turbulence, Haptic Cyberspace. 2. Following the smallest angle of deviation, with each step sonic Sun Tzu, very, very dark, emerging as quantized Hendrix. Hydraulics by Dom and Roland picks up with 3-cycle break beats, and gradually swells until the rhythm can damn no more, and is flooded by the nightmare roar of juggernautic stares and laval bass stabs. Storm Chemistry. 3. Longitude 0 degrees. The Drowned World. London, the vortical apex of the sonic base of the planominal transoceanic drainage slopes, echoing signals of conjunctive Phase 4 implosion as K5 USA opens to K6 China. How low can you go? The reason why the river and the sea are able to be king of the 100 valleys is that they excel in taking the lower position. 1. Scale 1 to 50,000. Zoom 1 to 50. Zoom 1 to 1. Zoom 1 to 0. Touchdown 0. Very, very dark. Engage pattern recognition. Movement, breakbeat consistency. 00230 50700. Full cycle trajectory. 29. Ka'an. 49. Ko. Darkcore destination base spin. Climate tropical. Cyclonic, wet, metal. Topology smooth, cable spine. Synapse ether, tactics, swarm machinic. Mission, hot, rinse, micro delamination. 2. Tackling the counter hydraulics of the metric with a hydraulic Tao of breakbeat. Highest good is like water, because water excels in benefiting the myriad creatures without contending with them, and settles where none would like to be. It comes close to the way, heavy waters liquid metal. 3. Chemistry. With stupefaction, you witness those sporadic eruptions, thin, mad fountains, those jets of water, more jet than water, burst primarily, punctiform, excesses of forces, delirious spectacle of inner geyserization, signs of the prodigious increase in the potential of the neurons, of their sudden nervous discharges, signs of hurried releases, of micro-movements, of beginnings of movements, of budding movements and incessant micro-impulses. 1. Guerrilla hydraulics provide a submarine junglist breakdown with haptic navigation, a cybernetic steering for dark waters, a fluid pragmatics and continuous variation. The surplus value of post-social cyclonic meltdown produces sub-base materialist techniques, cubasic pragmatics, sonic hydraulics, chronic hydrophonics, and sampledelic metallurgy. 2. Darkcore. 3. Afrofuturist Occidental implosion, drawing the skunk into Cyberpunk. Latitude 34 degrees north, longitude 118 degrees west. 1. This is LA, a hard-step jungle track by Lemon D. A high-velocity West Coast gangsta-style intro bifurcates amid swarming news helicopters into a dark cyclone of compressed and twisted break beats. Distributed in the swirl are rhythmically inserted crime reports and Roy Ayers samples from Everybody Loves the Sunshine. 2. Sinofuturist. Supernova Zoo electronic Shaolin zinc infiltration of the New Age carbon analog Orient. Latitude 22 degrees north. Longitude 114 degrees east. 3. The state drifts south and the south drifts east in a Sinofuturist storm. The vast bed of water seamed and scarred into 1,000 conflicting channels, burst suddenly into frenzied convulsion, heaving, boiling, hissing, gyrating in gigantic and innumerable vortices, and all whirling and plunging on to the eastward with a rapidity which water never elsewhere assumes, except in precipitous descents. Downhill ride, no U-turn. When you have come to grips and are strung together with the enemy, and you realize that you cannot advance, you soak in and become one with the enemy. You can win by applying a suitable technique while you are mutually entangled. 1. Big Blue Beats, aka Drippy, aquatic intelligent drum and bass, lies at the fringes of the most effective jungle hydraulics. For sure, fly jump up, check Pascal's gangstadelic swarm machines on Frontline, Cutthroat, True Playas, Vortex, and the New Frontiers EP. And Dark Step whip up more vertical activity, and hover-based low seas viracy in the jungle break war against the military entertainment copyright complex. WBO. Attack in an unsuspected manner, knowing his meter and modulation and the appropriate timing. Knowing the times means your ability is high, seeing right into things. 2. The breakbeat forms a mutating fractal coastline, a real sonic cartography mapping the diagonal which cuts between the double articulation of order and chaos, rhythm surfing between the intensity irrigation of metronic ice and the opiated cosmic nauseous pulses of free jazz, sonic despotism and its moving shadow, flotation tank ambience shattered. On the plane, glass shatters dissolving specular dominance into the haptic, dark side guidance, groove riding. 3. Chemistry. Microdelamination attacks the folding of rhythm into metricity. It is difficult to move strong things by pushing directly, so you should injure the corners. Flattening beats. 1. The channel hacking used by Dylan on Turbulence, Drop in Science, makes a DJ and the crossfader imminent to the track. Every 12-inch has a slightly different channel mix, so that the rapid crossfade punch kicks open sonic trapdoors. You leave your head and enter one of the other ones, simulating changes of altitude and the corresponding perturbation of sensory perception. Gray matter crust warps of torsion. Perceptions of Silver Surfer skipping between 4 boards and a high roller submarine rhizodrome. 2. For a long time, turbulence was identified with disorder or noise. Today we know that this is not the case. Indeed, while turbulent motion appears as irregular or chaotic on the macroscopic scale, it is on the contrary highly organized on the microscopic scale. The multiple space and time scales involved in turbulence correspond to the coherent behavior of millions and millions of molecules. Viewed in this way, the transition from laminar flow, i.e., non-turbulent or calm, to turbulence is a process of self-organization. 3. As drum and bass jungle is a mobile motor, the breakbeat carries key traits of self-similarity, irrelevant of scale. It is as if there is an elastic tension between the metric number line and a secret encryption involving prime numbers and a cyclic discontinuity weaving around, converging and diverging. Continuous variation with nomadic numbering numbers tagging the real intensity, which in the metric plane of organization dissipates along the military dateline of history. Continuous multitude, vibratory, zigzagging, in continued transformation. Lines swarm, but never parallel, always an angle of declination, a line of deviation which, more than a mastery of an enslaved machine, is evidence more the productive accidents of sonic arrangement. The whole series of things about accidents, about bugs, about the producer being someone who can nurture a bug, who can breed a bug, and simultaneously, most of the key musics have been accidents. They've actually been formed through errors. They're like software errors, syntax errors in the machine's programming, and they form these sounds, and the producer's taken these sounds and more or less nurtured this error, built on this mistake. And if you grab a mistake, you've got a new audio life form. 1. Don't think of breakbeat in terms of some kind of ancient technique, which has been resuscitated. You see a lot of people saying breakbeat is the return of the African drumming sound, but it's the other way around. The breakbeat should be moved forward. It was virtually always there in the zeroid smoothness of the Matrix. Rhizomorphic Black Atlantic. 2. On the upside, motion captures a planetary irrigational skin. The carceral continuum sidewinding through gray matter, electronic writing, CAD, GIS, thermal imaging, digital sonic strataware. All regurgitate perturbation, feeding it back into statistically classified layers. Meanwhile, in Shaolin, virtual becoming dissolves into the actual, depositing breaks into code, then vinyl, remapping the body for a kinesthetic war zone as the 21st century swells the dams of the human security system. There is a sense in which the nervous system is being reshaped and rehalted for a new kind of sensory condition. Breakbeat DNA scratched into the flesh. 3. Remote sensing malfunction. Accidental coordinate displacement. Unable to correct time. 1. Sidewind out of time. Positive plagiarisms to the sim jungle of Shaolin. 2. 540 AD. Bodhidharma. Indian Buddhist priest visited China, checking upon local monks who had begun the process of translating Sanskrit texts to Chinese for the contagion of the oceanic multitude, refusing the emperor's belief that by his noble act he was opening his personal gate to nirvana. Tamo journeyed to the young forest, Shaolin, of Hunan, to consult with the monks. Dazzling them with his laser vision, he gained admittance. What he found was a funkless clod of inert temple, organically segmented. He was fazed by their inability to perform the most basic of meditation practices. These monks, they always dance to the words, he thought. The stylus descended down into the grooves. A rough ride. Disturbance in the ride ignites a current traversing conduction media, amplifying, vibrating molecules, shocking joints, sweeping anything in the way towards the plane. Down, down. Technics, shark, amp, bins, air, CNS, hard drive, liquid mechanosphere, metal ocean. They drained into him like water down a plug hole. Dark metal. 3. We master archers say, with the upper end of the bow, the archer pierces the sky. On the lower end, as though attached by a thread, hangs the earth. If the shot is loose with a jerk, there is a danger of the thread snapping. For purposeful and violent people, the rift becomes final, and they are left in the awful center between heaven and earth. 1. Re-engineering the circuit, smoothing out the movements of the square-eyed transcribers using becoming animal electronic chi enhancement. These techniques of Shaolin break fu functioned at first as self-defense from local gangs and predatory animals. Prey speed, surfing the diagonal between Buddhist nonviolence and the testosteronic annihilatory discharge of captured martial potential, deploying tactics of self-defense and conflict avoidance. There is no real acceleration between kung fu catatonia and lightning. The potential for continuous variation and transformation approach pure speed. Chi lubricated breakbeat limb deployment towards planes of consistency. The 8 steps of the snake and crane. 2. Shaolin is swarm catalyzer. Programming Triad syndicated film production in Hong Kong. Golden Triangle poppy production. Kowloon chemical distillation, and encrypted planetary distribution networks rinsing out global finance in San Franciscan laundromats. 3. True playas. High-voltage rhythmic paroxysmal outbursts, isolated peaks, multiple peaks, bifed waves, sharp waves, string of waves of bristling appearance in the shape of combed teeth, saw teeth, slow waves, slow sinusoidal hypersynchronous outbursts. In anticipation of hydraulic breakage, ghosts of low-budget kung fu flicks swarm in on ghetto blaster matte street assemblages, remixing the body rotor style. 1. Sustaining disequilibrium. All things entail rising and falling timing. From the outset, you must know the applicable timing and the inapplicable timing. And from among the large and small things, and the fast and slow timings, find the relevant timing. First, seeing the distance timing and the background timing. This is the main thing in strategy. It is especially important to know the background timing. Otherwise, your strategy will become uncertain. Many things can cause a loss of balance. One causes danger, another a surprise. In single combat, start by making a show of being slow, then suddenly attack strongly. You win in battles with the timing in the void, born of the timing of cunning, by knowing the enemy's timing, and thus using a timing which the enemy does not expect. Asymmetry of amplitude, asymmetry of rhythm, total change of rhythm. 2. But it is true that the martial arts continually invoke the center of gravity and the rules for its displacement. That is because these ways are not the ultimate ones. However far they go, they are still in the domain of being, and only translate absolute movements of another nature into the common space, those effectuated in the void, not in nothingness, but in the smooth of the void, where there is no longer any goal, attacks, counterattacks, and headlong plunges. 3. Everyone knows the most daring soldiers go no faster than the music. The noise, first, fury belongs, above all, to the multitude, and the multitude rushes around. It covers space like a flood. 1. McLuhan argued that electric circuitry was orientalizing the West, attacking the contained, the distinct, and the separate with the flowing and the fused. But there is no real opposition between the digital and the analog. The flat line cut through both. Pure energy, pure speed. Pause. 2. Perceptual neurochemical weaponry. Stimulants attacking organic humanoid hard wiring. Affects transpierce the body like arrows. They are weapons of war. The deterritorialization velocity of effect. Even dreams are externalized by a system of relays and plugins. Extrinsic linkages belonging to the war machine. Broken rings. In the oscillation between catatonic freezing and flashes and rushes, the Japanese fighter, interminably still, who then makes a move too quick to see. When Deleuze and Guattari diagram the release of a speed vector that characterizes a war machine, they are mapping traits of a poised Fu assemblage keeping still, or voyaging in place. The drop. Deep coma. 3. Taking Paul Virilio's equation of all speed with fascism would lead to lumping together Shaolin Wu Funk, jungle hydraulics, with the Freikorps stomp of Euro-terminal GABA, in terms of a paranoid poliocentrics of the body, its fortressing and its sieging. But the real break is between the crypto-fascist masculine steel hard body shell with its metric hammer blows, battering out a plane of organization, and a nomad war machine of beats so rhythmic they map the metallic ocean. That massive conduction circuit that connects the iron core at the center of the earth, slivers of mineral deposits in the continental shelves, those vast seas of dihydrogen oxide, rigorously a metal, into the ferric capillaries of blood music, the plane of consistency. 1. The breakbeat, not an interior militarized metric, is chemical attack on the organism. It is not surprising that the plateau of continuous imminence, that is drum and bass, conjugates with amortal combat in its dismantling the organism's strata. Big up your chest, wind up your waist, limb by limb, the WBO is smashed up, the European corporal reality principle disorganized and detrimentalized. Mercury rinse. 2. For some, It is not a matter of switching from macro-violence to micro-violence, but molecularizing further still to the art of fighting without fighting, and further still, microengineering out of war. Photech's interest in the Orient is different, however. The Pacific Rim allusions in Ni Ten Ichi Ryu, The Water Margin, and Seven Samurai speak more of the elaborate subtlety of Japanese tea ceremonies, the miniaturized intricacy of bonsai, the elegant simplicity of shodo, the art of ink writing with sparse brush strokes, yielding without resistance, actionless activity, voyaging in place, continuous imminence, vortical poise. 3. Afrofuturist jungle singularity marks a convergence between black rhythmic culture and mutant technology. Viral technical infections of mainstream advertising accelerating attacks on MTV programming grids with incidental hives of metallic insects. Intensive sonic cartographics for a neo-medieval scenario spat out the rear end of a disciplinary state megamachine complex, a process initiated by what old dead metalhead Foucault termed the Great Confinement. 1. Like gangster rap, jungle reflects a medieval paranoia-scape of robber barons, pirate corporations, conspiracies, and covert operations, and influenced by dystopian sci-fi movies that contain subliminally anti-capitalist messages, with their images of carceral inner cities, Escape from New York, Running Man, high-tech police death squads, Blade Runner, sentient buildings, Die Hard, urban Bantustans, They Live, Vietnam-like street wars, colors, and which only extrapolate from actually existing trends. 2. Hyper-urban neo-medievalism is high-rise meltdown. 3. A series of minorities rejecting integration form clans, and each clan picks a neighborhood that becomes its own center, often inaccessible. The clan spirit dominates also the well-to-do classes who, pursuing the myth of nature, withdraw from the city to the garden suburbs with their own shopping malls, bringing other types of micro-societies into existence. 1. Turbulence is the Burgess model of the Megalopian military-industrial entertainment complex. 2. The Vietnamization of territory, perpetual war in the urban jungle, gang collision warding off the state, endo-colonization along shifting internal frontiers. The destruction of the modern city is totally consistent with the military's need to maintain a clear field of operations, making over the earth in a form which denies cover to any resistance. Pure war. 3. Jungle processes a future complete with fortress cities and bandit clans, the pervasive sense of slipping into a new dark age, of an insidious breakdown of the social contract, a world that is falling apart. There's a cold rage seething in jungle, but it's expressed within the terms of an anti-capitalist yet anti-socialist politics. The art of being a roller, a steppa, to handle the rough ride. Twisted anger. Lahane cyber-positivized a special techniques. Co-style. AWOL. 1. The smoldering slow-motion riot of the Megalopian jungle attacks code from all directions. The breakbeat infects the monoplod metricity of white technosonics, while graffiti engages what Baudrillard terms a ride of signs, eternally tracked down onto new smooth spaces, A signifying codes with a secret functionality injecting compressed doses of intensity into the striations of the spectacular state, only to be countered by self-cleaning metro shells, making the walls move. Bass frequency, sonic graffiti. Back in Amazon, white man face tries to argue. Militarized metric dialects with bass. Blissful noise of language drowning in dark metal. Voices sink away in a kind of muffled roar, which one hears with only half an ear, at first, and in the end, one finds it no more disturbing than the distant roar of the sea, which, once one has grown accustomed to it, is no longer perceived. 2. Dark is where predatory energies meet digital technique, where ID gets scientific. You don't need enlightenment in haptic space. 3. Drying up, death, intrusion have rhythm. It is well known that rhythm is not meter or cadence, even irregular meter or cadence. There is nothing less rhythmic than a military march. There is nothing more rhythmic than a breakbeat swarm. 1. Interminable epistemological wrangling about postmodernity seems merely a distraction when these key transitions are best tracked by a Subi-ass materialism. 2. Machinic night vision reports from the dark side of the Occident, mapping the interlock of desiring machines, social megamachines, and war machines, as technology converges with biology in computerized control societies. 3. Planetary capital flow redistributes, bringing novel mutations along the axes of east-west and north-south. The more the worldwide axiomatic installs high industry and the highly industrialized agriculture at the periphery, provisionally reserving for the center so-called post-industrial activities, automation, electronics, information technologies, the conquest of space, over-armament, etc., the more it installs peripheral zones of underdevelopment inside the center, internal third worlds, internal souths. 1. Unequal exchange. The imminence of axiomatics escalates perturbation from ripples to tidal waves of decoding and deterritorialization. With the flick of the switch, capitalism implodes as perfected revolutionary overdrive. 2. Zero-sum war games deployed on socioscape, crime war, drug war, battle for the family. Wherever there is a perceived danger, there is deterrence. Whenever there is deterrence, there are imminent boundaries. And wherever there are imminent boundaries, there is organized violence. For having boundaries that are actualized by being crossed is a very precarious way to run a world. 3. Golf operations of the Wu World Order. 1. Barbed circuit wire jungle vines and a multi-scalar, headless, cybernetic planetary world system. 2. SoCal becoming minoritarian. 1992 prime time. Judicial rubber stamping of video-captured microfascism ignites urban turbulence. The anti-black counterinsurgency of the dream city of free circulation, programmed to irrigate Afrofuturist hydraulics. Discard population or resort to modulation. Integrate or exterminate. 3. Ultra-real video capture dissolves nostalgia. LA law edits King's beatings to generate bizarre retrospective lubrications for control machinery. Digital cut-ups of the video, freeze framing, stretching and looping the baton swings in order to saturate King's black body in signs of danger, fight, and flight. 1. That episode is saturated with a solid-state code of homie hunt counter-hydraulics. The fear of untamed speed. Rhizomaniac pattern recognition confuses King's vector through Lakeview Terrace with the nomadic gangbangers of South Central. The focus of LAPD's deployment of low-intensity warfare on the multi-ethnic field. The paranoia of population lamination processed with temporary truce between Crips and Bloods as stage 1 of a Farrakhan orchestrated takeover conspiracy demanding the management of terrorist populations through actual or virtual imprisonment and martial law localized to the hood. 2. From discipline to control. 3. From welfare to warfare. 1. The social and political fluidity of late capitalism has not been accomplished by a withering away of state violence. On the contrary, state violence has also been fluidified and intensified. The rapid deployment force is the modal of late capitalist state violence, on all fronts. The ability to descend out of nowhere, anywhere, at a moment's notice. The virtualization of state violence. It's becoming imminent to every corner of the social field, as unbounded space of fear. 2. from surveillance to monitor. 3. Riot coverage shot from helicopters doubles as news footage indicating a shift from the ubiquitous vision of the sovereign to the stereoscopic partial coverage of monitor. Zoom lens technology advances since Watts 65, engaging a regurgitative potential. The eye converges with the arm. Visibility is death, laserized futures, latitudinal zero, absolute speed. 1. Lamination is the capture of decoded flows using LAPD rhizomaniac vortices sent through South Central, searching and sucking up all amateur video footage of the riots. The fear of an immeasurable speed. Naked LAPD, slooshing down media meme pool flumes, entangled with King's other body, Rodney King. In South Central, the memes go swimming in a flashpoint to urban turbulence. 2. The wind of violence, unleashed, mastered, lost, retaken, delirious, and disciplined. It subsides and swells like action, but it is like action, disorder and danger to be controlled, from bodies to the collective, in a lightning short circuit, without language, through the groundswell of violence and pandemonium. 3. Brownian Canetti swarms in flight from the irrigation of the city of Quartz, swept up into the hyper-urban fear ecology. Post-social cyclonics tuning into the infonumeric weather system of fiber space. 1. Postmodern bred riot and multi-ethnic explosion and prime-time Nike redistribution. 2. The digital capture of the LAPD chemical clock, frozen with her pants down, revealing erect baby lobsters. LAPD, zone of indistinction rapidly oscillating between thin blue line, the threshold of capital security, and bloody red stains on their paranoid armory. Naked LAPD apparatus of capture, cybernetic homeostatic Hoover with teeth, emptying its migrant dust into the deep end of an increasingly pervasive carceral continuum. Or in Mexico, intelligent Hoovers who know the way to San Jose. 3. Code 187. 1. Fuzzy dread. When I was here, I wanted to be there. And when I was there, all I could think of was getting back into the jungle. 2. Sidewind of vortex. I'd wind of vortex. De wind of vorte. A wind of vort. Wind of vor. Indavo. Ndavo. Davo. AV. V. 3. Bringing writing and putting it onto the second deck and just accelerating it. 1. Darkcore. 2. No U-turn. 3. Turbulence is co-motion.